One of my favourite things in rugby league is watching rookies come through and absolutely dominate and turn organisations around and just give people hope. For example, you've got the Panthers boys that have come in and pretty much turned that organisation around. And then the Tigers and the Bulldogs at the moment have so much hope given the young crop of talent coming through. And honestly, I think the 2023 rookie class might be one of the best ones we've ever seen. We go straight into it. We'll start off with the Storm. Now this guy, I don't know how he hasn't played yet. Jack Howarth is like a second row / centre, but honestly, how he hasn't played it's beyond me. His talent is ridiculous, and every time I watch him play, he looks a level above everyone else out there. He's one of the most promising players coming through the grades, and honestly, I think he's destined for a debut in the NRL in 2023, and mostly because of the losses that the Storm have had. I personally think he's better suited to second row. I know that the Storm are trying to play him at centre, but I think given their losses at second row, there's a lot of minutes there, and I think Jack Howarth will take up some of those. And this bloke, if you haven't seen him play, go look at his highlights. He's a strong ball runner, and his defence is really good as well for on an edge. And I think he's going to just absolutely cause chaos. And last season, he's re-signed with the Storm for around 400 to 500k a year. So obviously the Storm rate him, and I imagine on that kind of money, he's not going to be sitting in reserve grade for much longer. So I think he'll play this season. And the Storm, as well as Jack Howarth, they've also got this guy called Jonah Pezzett, and he was the halfback for the under-19s New South Wales team last year. I think he's going to be their backup half, and that's one of the reasons why they let Cooper Johns go, because they've got high hopes for Pezzett. And I think if Jerome Hughes has an injury this season, keep an eye on him. Onto the Bulldogs. These guys honestly might have the best juniors coming through in the whole comp. This is another guy who I can't believe hasn't played NRL yet, though. Paul Alamotti. Injuries limited him last year, so he didn't play. He didn't really dominate reserve grade as much as you probably would have wanted him to last season, but I think he just didn't have that consistency. He was in and out of the team because of injury. But Aaron Shop's departure opens up huge minutes in the centres, and I don't think Braden Burns' spot's exactly cemented in that side. Paul Alamotti looks to be that guy, but there's a fair few other blokes that are going for that centre position that are rookies as well. So you got Declan Casey, who we saw play a couple games last season. I'm pretty sure this guy's name's Josh. It's spelt Joash. So if I've got it wrong, but his name's Josh Papali'i. We've seen that one before. And Gerald Skelton, who he's got huge raps coming on, especially from the Guru. So they're looking for centre minutes, so it's going to be a pretty interesting battle. The Doggies also have Franklin Pele, who they've signed from the Sharks, who he's an absolute unit. He's 6'6" probably, or maybe 6'4", and 120 plus kilos. He's a tank. He's going to bring so much impact off the bench for the Bulldogs, which is something they really needed the last couple of years. Rolling on to another team that's got extremely exciting rookies, the Dolphins. Their main guys are Isaiah Katoa and Valence Tavare, and Katoa has huge raps on him, especially Ivan Cleary, the Penrith coach, was devastated to lose him last season, and it's such a huge compliment given that they have the current New South Wales halves as their club halves. So that just shows you the level of potential that everyone sees in him. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him line up at 6 for the Dolphins this year, with Milford either playing 1 or 14, and Hammer potentially going to centre. I don't know if they'll do this straight away, but I think at least by the season's end, Katoa is going to definitely rack up a few games. Speaking of the Dolphin centres with Hammer playing there, Valence Tavare is that guy. He's just waiting in the wings to absolutely terrorise edges across the league. He's 6 foot and 100 plus kilos, so he's just an absolute wrecking ball of a frame. He reminds me so much of Conrad Hurrell, but with more raw pace. So yeah, he's only played rugby league for 1 year. So his defence might be a bit of an issue just yet to play first grade, but he's come from a rugby union background, so he gets sort of the gist of everything. And I think Wayne Bennett, though, will have this bloke develop immensely, and by the end of the season, Tavare could be a household name. The Dolphins, they also, apart from these two guys, have a young bloke they've signed from the Steelers, Jack Bostock, who's a bit of a rangy outside back, and he's boomed in growth the last couple of years. And if he gets a run, if there's a few injuries, he's certainly on a black book for seasons to come. His main position is centre, but he can also fill in on the wing, and I think he could be a very valuable asset to the Dolphins. Maybe not this season, but in seasons to come. Now, on to the Panthers. This is ridiculous that they've even got this bloke who hasn't played first grade yet. Sunia Taruva, we saw him at the World Cup and seen him play for Fiji. He's just a freak, and he'd absolutely carve up in the NRL. But it's so hard to crack that back five at Penrith, because you got Edwards, To'o, Tungo, Crichton, and Taylor May. So where does he get in? But he was one of the best players in Cup last year for Penrith. He scored 13 tries and had 94 tackle busts in 20 games. Unfortunately for Taruva, though, the only way I really see him getting minutes is if one of the back five go down with an injury or suspension, unless they decide to, because Kikau's gone, if they want to shift Tungo into the second row, which I don't think they will, but like it's his natural position, like it's where he played growing up and that sort of thing. So if they do that, then they might give Taruva a run in the centres, but we'll have to wait and see. But onto the Sharkies. For me, this guy, Jesse Coughlin, could have a huge year just because of the minutes that are available in front row. So he played 4 games last season for him, and like it definitely did a job, and we can see there's a lot of potential there. But the Sharkies have also let Franklin Pele go, as we just spoke about, for the Bulldogs. So they've obviously got high hopes and raps about this guy coming through. Another player for the Sharkies who could have a big impact this season, probably off the bench. To start with, and maybe he could make an impact if injuries strike the back line, but Cade Dykes, we saw him come off and play that 14 role a couple of times last season, and I think like he's definitely one to look out for the future. Now onto the Cowboys. This guy played 1 game last year, Tommy Chester. He's like fullback or utility, like you can pretty much play anywhere, but their starting 13 is pretty set, so there's like not really a spot for him, but with no Hammer there anymore, he could take up those bench minutes. And this bloke's like tough as nails, and honestly I think you chuck him anywhere and he'd go out and do a job for you. So I think like he honestly could get some decent minutes this season. Even playing in the middle is like a linking 13, because he's obviously got good ball playing as a fullback. But yeah, so we'll have to wait and see if he gets a run or not, but I think Tommy Chester is that guy for the Cowboys this season. Over to the Eels, I don't know too much about their rookies, to be honest, but I've seen this name come up a few times. Tony Matelli, if I've butchered that, I'm so sorry. He's a second rower, and there's big second row minutes available this year for the Eels, so he could might be able to find his way onto a bench spot. Over to the Chooks, this guy, he has huge raps on him. He's an absolute monster. He's a second rower. Siwa, I think his first name, Wong. Siwa Wong. This guy, he started 2022 in SG Ball and then played New South Wales Cup by the end of the year, which showing like how much the Roosters rate this kid, because especially like they're not going to rush anyone's development. Like they put Joseph Swiley in reserve grade for half a season, so I mean that shows you that like they've got patience and time. But if a couple injuries happen, Wong could definitely get a spot in this team, and I think he'll make it very hard for Robert to drop him once he's in there. But you've got as Tupanua is going to be back till May. But you still got Butcher and Crichton in front of him for a starting spot at least. But yeah, like interesting to see what happens. So this guy is obviously a freak, but he's got to look to the future, see what the Roosters want to do with him. Now to the Broncos, I have huge raps on this bloke, Blake Mozer. He's a hooker for the Broncos, and hooker's a position that really, really lacks depth over the Broncos. Like they've got Billy Walters and Corey Pates, the only really recognised nines there, and which would give Mozer a massive boost to think, hey, I can make my way into this team. He's tipped as the next Cameron Smith, and just because he's a general and can just guide the park, guide the side around the park rather. And I think if he has a good start to the season in Q Cup, it could be a namesake in the Broncos squad by come the end of the season. And with, like as well, minutes at 14 could definitely help. But I'd probably start him over Billy Walters, because Billy Walters has a bit more diversity to his game from what I've seen so far. So yeah, but Blake Mozer, definitely one to keep an eye on. Over to the Rabbits, Terrell Callo. He's a fullback / like an outside back. He's managed to get himself like a bit like Wong from SG Ball to a top 30 spot though this season for the Bunnies. Normally a fullback, if Callo wants to get any minutes, he's gonna have to play out of position, because like Tron Mitt is that guy. So he's gonna have to settle for an edge, especially right wing and left center for the Rabbits. They aren't exactly locked down. So right wing you've got Tane Milne and Isaac Thompson going for that. Neither of those are really recognised. Milne's more of a recognised first grader, but none of those guys have that spot cemented at all. And then left center you've got Isaiah Tass. So if Callo impresses in New South Wales Cup and those guys don't start the season very well, you could see him come and play a bit of first grade this season. Now over to the Newey Knights, we've already seen this guy play a few games of first grade. Christian Mapapalangi, he's a 5'8", but he filled in at centre last season and he played bloody well. Played a lot better than anyone really thought. So for him to come in and play out of position and really impress shows the talent that this guy has. So the Knights have big raps on him, and if they decide to keep Ponga at fullback, and if Gamble doesn't impress, I think this guy could be the next guy to come in, step up and impress. I think he'll force first grade minutes next season if he has really good form in New South Wales Cup. But as well, for the Knights, another guy that they've got is Dylan Lucas, who's a centre. And I know that he was going to be like their first choice of he was going to come in at the end of the season, but he got injured. So at one stage last season, he was ahead of this guy in the pecking order, but we'll see. So Dylan Lucas is another one to keep an eye on for you Knights fans. Now over to the blokes from the capital, the Raiders. This guy, Trey Mooney at lock, he could 100% be rookie of the season, rookie of the year this season. So Adam Elliott was a key player to the Raiders last year. I think we can all agree on that as a ball-playing lock. And he's been let go partially due to the talent that Trey Mooney has. He's a big frame with silky ass hands and the ability just to be an absolute tank in defense. So Mooney has he's got the keys to become one of the game's elite locks. So the only issue I see with him is might not be quite ready for a full year of NRL just yet, but he certainly has the talent to mix it with the big boys, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets at least 15 games in NRL this season. Now over to Manly, this guy, Jordan Chiancarn-Tom, is a hooker. So Manly, like the Broncos, don't really have insane hooker depth. And while Croker has definitely improved immensely over the last couple of seasons, if Manly want to improve and go on to be premiership threats, hooker's one of the positions that they might look to improve. So Chiancarn-Tom is a bit of a pocket rocket at 9, and I think he'll be a perfect 14 for the first few rounds, given that Dylan Walker's left the club and Kyle Lawton will still be injured at the start of the season. And especially given how much punch and talent this bloke has coming off the bench, I think it might be very hard for Seabold to replace him if he's given the jersey at the start of the season, and it could go on to be one of those guys that just booms this season. So yeah, he's definitely one if you are a Manly fan to watch. Jordan Chiancarn-Tom. He's also got a brilliant name, so I hope he does well. Over to the Tigers, we've seen this guy play a couple of games last season, but Justin Matamua is a lock, and I think he could be the key for the Tigers to make the 8 in the next couple of seasons. Ball playing lock, Matamua is going to be the perfect link man between Coruscant and the Tigers halves, whoever they may be in the coming years. He's given a taste of first grade last season. I think he's absolutely ready to explode this year. Tigers have signed 2 young guns from Manly as well to keep an eye on. So Josh Folletti, who is a centre, I think he got Manly's Player of the Year for SG Ball last year, or maybe even Jersey Flag. Bloke's a freak. And as well as Sione Fainu. So that Fainu last name's coming up again. He's a prop. Could be off of big minutes if he impresses in cup at the start of the year or something. But huge frame, huge potential, one to keep an eye on. For the Titans, this guy, Khan Pereira, is a winger. This guy is quick. 36.5 kilometers an hour clocked quick. Titans outside back depth isn't huge, and with Sammy and Jojo Fafita's spot on a wing, they aren't exactly set in stone. Sammy's he's played Origin. Fafita is an up and comer, so I think he'll keep his spot. But I wouldn't be surprised if Khan Pereira gets a spot, gets a run some stage at this season and just absolutely sets the water light. This guy's one of those electric kind of guys, and just bums on seats kind of bloke. Over to the Warriors, this is the player that we've heard about for years now, Ronald Volkman. He's the Warriors' future. A half that came through the Roosters system. Volkman has it all. Good passing game, kicking game, and he's a decent defender too on an edge. The only thing is, for him this season, Tamade Martin's set for the 6 and Sean Johnson's set for the 7 as their halves. So to begin the season, especially first grade minutes, will be quite hard to come by unless he comes off the bench. But I think you'd want him to be sitting in reserve grade and developing. It's the same sort of situation as Bud Sullivan at the Dragons. You'd rather him be sitting there in reserve grade, developing, getting good minutes at 7, so he can come in and take over from the full-time 7 in Johnson for the Warriors. Now, speaking of the Dragons, the guy that I've got for them is Hale Fainu. He's on a trainer trial, but the reason why I've selected him to talk about is because he's a dummy half, and again, the Dragons are another team that's light on stocks and dummy half. Finau has been brought up to the Dragons alongside his brother, and they've come from the Storm system, so usually that's a good sign. He's got a really good running game out of dummy half, which is something that Dragons have definitely needed those last couple of years. So I think, honestly, if he impresses in the preseason, which from what I've heard he has been, I expect him to at least play a couple of games at 14, and could come on and tear it up. The Dragons also have a talented front rower, Josh Corrick, who's been waiting in the wings there. And from all reports, Anthony Griffin said he would have got a run last year if it wasn't for injury. So hopefully he can get a good string of run of games together this season and impress and make his way into the first grade team. So that's my tips for rookies to watch out for this season, especially all you Supercoach players. I know that's one you absolutely love. But yeah, if you like this, if you've made it this far, like obviously you like something about the video, so drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and yeah, thanks for watching.